But first, no one could accuse the Morrison government of complacency in the face of this corona crisis. To be candid, I did worry that the government might have taken its eye off the ball after banning travel from China in early February. What they did then was right, and well ahead of other nations as well. But when faced with criticism from the university sector and the Chinese ambassador, the government appeared reluctant to go further with border controls. And I have to say, what's the point of being an island continent at a time like this if you don't use the luck that geography has given you? But it now seems pretty clear that the system, that's Canberra, the politicians and the public servants, have caught up. And today's health-related announcements by Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt are as significant, are as important as what was announced yesterday with the government's JobKeeper allowance. Last night it was good on the PM for changing his mind and helping businesses to keep workers employed through these stand-downs. And tonight it's good on Health Minister Greg Hunt and his state colleagues for mobilising private hospitals into the system so that we could cope, if we need to, with any significant increase in serious corona cases. And importantly too, the Minister's announcement today of a new surge capacity of ventilator intensive care beds at something like triple the existing number of 2,200, so taking Australia's capacity up around 7,500, over time of course, needs to be at the top of any news bulletin across the country this evening. It was always absolutely essential that we avoided an Italian-style meltdown of our health system. There, it seems, coronavirus has become rampant in the north before any social distancing measures were put in place, and as a consequence, the health system is virtually imploded, with older Italians quite literally left to die in hospital corridors. That's why we needed to act, and fast, to avert anything like that happening here. And so far, after a couple of weeks of ever-tightening social distancing rules, there are some very early signs that infections are starting to plateau. But beware of complacency. Beware of any sense in the media or in the wider Australian community that we've done anywhere near enough to bring this crisis under control based on a couple of days of positive-looking data. How long this lasts and what will be needed to get this outbreak under control will be the careful work of epidemiologists, health experts schooled in the way diseases move through communities. They will want to see days and days of plateauing and then falls before there's any move to ease social distancing rules and wind the economy back into operation. Now, on the other side of the equation sit all the Treasury experts, the bean counters who set the limits of what we're taxed and then help spend the money. Well, they'll all be champing at the bit to ensure today's temporary stand-downs don't become tomorrow's permanent shutdowns, and that the policy-induced recession, and it is a recession we're in now, doesn't become an economic depression. As always, even in times of crisis, what happens is a question of getting the balance right. And on the health front today, thanks to the announcement by Greg Hunt about the tripling of ventilator capacity, I'm now starting to feel more confident than I have for some time, to be honest, that our health system is now better equipped to cope than it was back in January when we first started talking about this Wuhan virus. In the meantime, though, we all wait proof that the social restrictions are working. I hope the government will be monitoring now too how its business support measures are working out in practice. It's great to see that almost 250,000 employers, I think it might be 300 now as I go to air, have registered for the government's job seeker payment in the past 24 hours. And I'm not surprised. After all, it means employers basically get to transfer their staff from their own payroll to that of the taxpayer. And while I give a lot of credit to the PM and the Treasurer for their package, I've got to say again that paying every business the same amount for every stood-down worker is inevitably a very blunt instrument. Yes, the government wants to keep paying businesses, to keep paying their workers an actual wage that they're getting now, not just this $1,500 a fortnight, but without plenty of political pressure, The temptation will be for business to pay everyone the same, this $1,500 a fortnight, regardless of whether you're a 20-year-old casual or a breadwinner with a family to feed and a mortgage to pay. Indeed, I'm aware of a uni student casual currently working a handful of hours each fortnight with a take-home pay of just over $500 who will now get $1,500 out of this announcement. So an extra $1,000 a fortnight in his pay for no extra hours and no extra effort. And many families, as we know, on $1,500 a fortnight, well, they'll go backwards. And what about all those government ministers who aren't dealing 24/7 with this health and economic crisis? And all those public servants whose pay is $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 plus, and as we know, whose jobs are protected. If workers are losing as much as half of their take-home pay, and that's a reality for anyone on average earnings at the moment, and self-funded retirees, well, they've lost about half of their earnings on their investment, where's the justice if public servants also fail to take a 50% haircut on their salaries as well? After all, as the PM says often enough, we're all in this together, aren't we?